I may have mentioned in the past about how many rocks are in the soil around here, and digging into anything requires a pretty big shovel. Now we don't want to go out and rent an excavator every time we need to build something. So I'm putting up a temporary shelter to put our boat in, and this is going to be the foundation. I'm just going to lie it on top of the gravel, and then we'll fasten our structure to this. This is maple. Seems kind of crazy to use maple for something like that, but it's what we got, so that's what we're going to use. Well, that's it for today. It's raining, and I'm not going to work out in the rain because I may be made of sugar. We got 25 feet down each side, more or less, and now we just got to get the shelter out and put her up. This should be heavy enough. Around here, there's no wind load to speak of. There will be snow, so I'll have to make sure we keep it cleaned off. Other than that, be good to go. Protect their boat for the winter. We'll come back when it's not raining. Well, here's the box for the shelter. This is ours, a 12 by 24 by 10 feet. So you need these tools, 3 hours, 4 people. Well, I think you're looking at the whole crowd. We got the tractor. That always helps. Let's see what we can do. Just going over all the parts. Here's the bolts. There's 3 different types of bolts and the nuts in this bag. They don't seem to be very well sorted. I guess I'll have to sort them out. Some are just a little bit longer than the others, and in the past I've ran into situations like that, and almost 100% of the time you use the longer bolt where the short bolt should be, and then when it comes time you need a long bolt, you don't have any more. I would like to see this changed. In that bag of bolts it comes with 3 different bolt sizes, so just to make it easy I can just check with a little template I set up here to see which bolt is which. You see, between these ones there really isn't that much difference, but I'm sure there's enough of a difference that you'll have to go undo a bolt if you use a long one where you should use a short one. See, this piece is a little out of round, so we'll need to tweak that up a little bit because it's not fitting. Fortunately, I have this pickaroon here. Alright, I put some nice tunes on so we can listen to that while we're watching me put this together at 1500 times speed. Fortunately, I can do that and it'll stop you from having to watch it, and that one might be painful, almost as painful as my knees are right now in that picture. After each frame was done, I would just take it to the side and set it out of the way. You have to be a little careful when you're moving it, as you do have a fair bit of leverage on it and you could bend the pipes, and you obviously don't want to do that because they're all supposed to be uniform. All the frames are similar except for the front one and the back one, and it's just the brackets that connect for your horizontal members that are different. Keep in mind it's always important to hydrate while you're working. Finally my helper showed up. Big Green. This is the only time I think you really need help in getting the frames up. And I think, you know, you could use a tree or just some ropes to hold that up. You don't necessarily need a big John Deere tractor to do that. The horizontal members are what keeps the spacing between the hoops consistent. They weren't that hard to put up. Just a lot of moving around, up and down the ladder a lot. Fortunately, I'm kind of tall, so I didn't need a ladder on the side ones. For the horizontal members, I didn't tighten up any of the bolts that attach to the frames. And you can see how much movement there is there. Any kind of structure when you're putting it together, it's always good to leave the bolts loose till you kind of get it all together. I remember years ago I put up a Quonset hut and I started tightening the bolts up, and by the time you got to the end, everything was out. Everything was out like an inch, and you'd have to go back. I think there was like 4,700 bolts in that thing, and that wasn't a lot of fun. So everything stays loose now. It certainly was nice to have an extra hand at this point. I think it's like 27 foot 10 or something like that, corner to corner. You could make it work somehow, but having a visit with Mrs. Homesteader is never a bad thing. And put them in. You can see I tried initially with my cordless Milwaukee Impact, and it just didn't have enough oomph. They're half inch lag bolts that I was using into a hardwood. It takes quite a bit of oomph to drive that in there. So I used a half-inch Impact, and that had enough whoop to drive them in. Now putting the ends up was not that difficult. Your horizontal cross members thread through part of the outer part of the actual wall itself, and then you use ratchet straps to tighten it down. Now I did have to go back after and loosen these ratchet straps up because I tightened it up too much. Note to self, leave it a bit loose, but just tighten it up enough so it's not going to fall off anyway. The front door was very similar. You can see there how it unzips. And same job, leave it a little bit loose, and you can always snug it up later. Doing the cover for the whole top wasn't that hard either. I got lucky, and when I pulled the tarp out, it just happened to be in the right direction. Usually that doesn't happen with me. I can even stop and go the other way, and it's always the other way, but it worked out that time. Use my nice rope here. You put one of the internal members inside of that tarp, and then you just tie it on there, and it's always nice to have something to tie it to. Once again, you know, if you had an extra person here, that would be great. You could pull it up all at once, but it wasn't that big of a deal to do it on my own, really. There's a lot of going back and forth and tweaking things a little bit when you're doing this. Tighten it up, loosen it up. You're going up there and putting the ladder up and pulling things left and right. It's just, but you know, the more time you take to do it, the better it's going to be. always pays to take your time. I've had the ShelterLogic sitting in my shop in the box for probably a month, but with the threat of winter coming on, it always moves things up on the priority list a little bit to get things done. So I'm starting to put the lower horizontal members on now. These are the ones that actually tighten the tarp up. And at this point right here, I realized that the spacing between the my frames wasn't right. So I had to take the impact and go around and take all my lag bolts out so I could get the lower frames to connect together. Now in the manual, it actually tells you to secure the thing down at an earlier point. And if you were drilling holes into concrete or something like that, you'd be pretty disappointed at this point. Fortunately, I'm just putting holes in the wood. It's not a big deal, and I had the impact there, so it the half-inch impact, so it wasn't a big deal to move these things around. So as you can see here, I'm just starting to snug everything up down a little, and tighten the tarp up a little bit. You just push down on it and tighten it up with the little impact on the small bolts, and that keeps her snugged up pretty quick. Now, because I did have to take out my lag bolts, you can see I've had to retweak my foundation a little bit around, but you know, that's just part of the way it goes. This didn't take me a whole long time to do, so it wasn't a big deal. You know, and having the right tools and always helps. This log in particular was pretty heavy, and I do have a little gap there. Not a big deal. I don't expect any bears or anything to be able to get in there, but if a bear did, it'd just take a swat at it and it would get in no problem anyway. But we're not going to store any food in there anyway. Well, there you go. The ShelterLogic, this is a 24 by 12 by 10. It says on the manual that it would take 4 people, 3 hours. So I count that as 12 man hours. It took me 5.5 hours to do it on my own. I used a tractor to get just start the very first one. If you didn't have a tractor, you could do it with a tie a couple ropes onto a tree or some concrete blocks or anything just to hold that first piece in place so you can get the second one attached. Now, a lot of people complain about these shelters that, you know, 2-3 years that they start to break down in the sun, and that's the sun right there. You can't see it today because it's behind the clouds, but that's where it comes. So this is going to get a lot of sun on it. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to throw another tarp over top of it. I have one here. It's got a few rips in it, but it's not for weather protection. It's just for sun protection. So that'll help keeping the sun off, and hopefully it buys me a couple of years. Having said that, this is a very temporary shelter. They're sold as temporary shelters, and in this area right here, eventually I'd like to build a timber frame kind of driving shed or barn. You know, we can store all the outdoor equipment in there, but that's going to be a little ways off. Got about 15 projects ahead of that. So I hope you enjoy this video. Please like and subscribe, and put a comment at the bottom if you can. It helps me promote this channel, and it helps YouTube show that you're interested in the content, and other people might be too. So thanks for watching. We'll be back again soon.